Okay, how y'all doing? Got back not too long ago on my nuclear injection test, and then I have to go back tomorrow. Then after that, I'll be able to know what's the outcome. All right, share copy. But basically, right now I'm glowing red, so I will be able to set off alarms um, at the airports at this point. So yeah, I'll be setting off alarms. Not Jack the Stripper. No, yeah, we're talking about Jack the Stripper. So that's what we're going to talk about. Jack the Stripper, the true story. Find the real true story behind this. So let me get the story up. I send Jason. Um, don't want to do this. He's supposed to be coming, hopefully. So Jack the Stripper and Hammersmith murders. So that's what we're talking about. I got several other items on here, other stories too. Show the victims their real names, where the backgrounds are. So yeah, Jubilis, I'm like glowing red because I did that nuclear ejection medicine for my heart, so they can see what's going on. So I gotta go tomorrow. So I have to wait 48 hours after tomorrow, and it'll be out of my system. So once I get the um, second nuclear ejection, so yep, I'll be setting off. If I went to airports and stuff like that, I would be setting alarms off. I'll be like dragged to another. I'm feeling just fine so far. So that's what we're doing. Jason, where are you? I just hang up. I just hang up on Jason. He said he's coming. I have no idea. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. They told me I would once the injection started, I would have like breathing problems and stuff, and they told me to breathe. So like, but yeah, I'll be glowing red for a while. I can't go airports. I can't escape into airports. I'll set all alarms off. So okay, we got 7 people. We'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and start reading the story. So Jack the Stripper and the Hammersmith murders. Grisly murders of prostitutes in West London and around the Hammersmith area between 1964 and 65. And still today, it's the biggest unsolved serial murder case in British police history. Also known as the Hammersmith murders, this case has attracted a slew of theories about the identity of the killer, ranging from the associate of Cray twin gangsters and conspiracies surrounding the infamous John Framo scandal of 1963, in which the celebrity call girls Christine Killer and Mandy Rice Davies. So lately, a BBC document pinpointing the potential suspect, impossible being the family man of Tommy Butler, who moved to Fulham after World War II. And as a boy of 15, he had charges imprisonment for 20 years. 20 years for brutal and murder of two young girls in his hometown of Alberto Tillery, something Wells in 1921. Jones died of bone cancer in 1971. Rather, this recent investigation by respect criminology will eventually prove to be correct. The fact remains that six possible eight women, most of whom were mothers, suffered terrible fates at their hands of some psychopath. This article focuses on the six young women known to have been attacked by the killer, given the moniker Jack the Stripper from 1964. But however, it is possible that the same man responsible for the murders of the two known prostitutes in West London, that of 21-year-old Elizabeth Fegg in 1957, a 22-year-old Gwyneth Reed, also known as Tina Smart, and Tina Dawson in 1963. First River murder victims. Hannah Tilfor had been missing for 10 days when it was cold and from February 2nd morning, 1964. Her naked body was found in the Thames near Hammersmith Bridge. It was established that Miss Tilfor's body had been thrown into the water 24 hours earlier from the Duke's Meadow, a quiet spot on the river near Chiswick. The 29-year-old known prostitute who was pregnant with her third child was not at the time recognized as the victim of the crime, despite displaying the head injury, the injured in having been found naked, bar her stockings. Tilford was part of the group of business girls who worked their trade along with Bayswater Road, which runs alongside Hyde Park, which was popular hunting grounds for men looking for casual sex. Although at the time, Tilford's short height 5'2" was not dwelled on by the police. Physical characteristics were to prove significant with some sequence murder in the month to come. Now, London 1964 was considered the swing city, where the loosening of the strict morals of a generation before meant that striptease clubs and prostitutes, particularly Soho, were more visible than ever before. Life for most street workers was a tough one, with many suffering abuse and violence and rare seeking the help of police, who prefer to arrest the likes of Tilford for playing their trade, sex for money. Now, Tilford's tragic death, leaving two young children motherless, was never established, assumed to be suicide like many other pulled from the Thames each year. Such dismiss views was to change just 2 months later. Second River murder, the shocking discovery of the second naked body of a woman, also found on the shore of below Duke's Meadow, suggested that the act of murder was now most likely for both victims. The 26-year-old Irene Lockwood was known prostitute who was also pregnant at the time of her death. Like Tilford, she worked for the same area of business off Bayswater Road and surrounding around West London. Now, blonde and note for being a short stature of 5 feet tall, it was established that Miss Lockwood had been assaulted and strangled elsewhere before her body was moved to the river. Now, it wasn't long before national newspapers began making association with the gruesome killings of Jack the Ripper 100 years ago. Before, Lockwood horrify and demonstrate the often violent encounters that the street workers experience, but where most attacks and assaults were rare report. Now, Irene owned a flatmate, had been battered to death just a few months before her own tragic murder. Now, the police didn't realize they had a potential serial killer in their midst. They would make that link 2 months later when a third victim was discovered and displayed what was to be recognized as a psychopathic twist signature of unique grisly handwork. Macabre, oh, I can't say that. But Helen Berthel, Bartholomew, it's hard to say. It's part of that nuclear stuff in my system. A striking, beautiful girl, age 22, is known as Teddy, was found dumped in a quiet alleyway known as Circum Avenue and a couple of miles away from Duke Meadow. The last victim had also been strangled. 3 of her front teeth were missing. Before believed to have been executed after death, it was Malcolm's signature of a killer that was to provide constants. The young Bethany, or whatever, born in Scotland and convert educated her sought her fortune in London, Soho. After a brief period working as a striptease artist in Blackpool, her post-mortem results suggest that she may have been strangled during the sex act of as she was found to have swallowed semen at the time of the death. Newspapers, eager for the big story, soon coined the headline Jack the Stripper for the still unknown killer, as 2 detectives superintendents joined the local police team in what was now a major manhunt for the psychopathic killer with obsession for killing short prostitutes. Because Teddy had not been submerged in water like the 2 previous victims, a forensic team was able to establish a vital clue that Berthy, I'll just say Berthy, had tiny speck of paint on her skin. And decades before the development of DNA technology, this was the only concrete fact to link the killer to the victims. False confessions. 3 days after the discovery of Teddy's body, middle-aged caretaker Kenneth Archibald walked into Nottingham Hill police station and admit to killing the second victim, Irene Lockwood. Archibald ran a drinking club, and a card from the same club had been found in Lockwood's flat. I killed her, admitted Archibald detectives, explaining how he had picked Irene for sex after quarreling over money and had then killed her, later rolling her body into the river. But the Old Bailey, the oddball character who had alibis for the 2 other murders, changed his story and admit that he was drunk and confess. But the jury acquitted him in less than an hour. The hunt for the serial killer. The extra chef was soon drawn into the police operations, as it was not confirmed that Scotland Yard was doubling its effort to find the multiple killer of the young woman in West London area. The one lead investigation had was the paint all on her body discovered on Teddy, which was assumed to have come from the high pressure paint sprayer. When Her body was stored before being moved. The search began for a workshop that possessed such equipment. Triangular areas encircling where all three bodies had been discovered was now a stretch for the police officer. The cordon around West London was set up where cars crossing the roadblocks between dusk and daybreak were logged and drivers interviewed. Such operation involved in a huge amount of data that needed to be cross-referenced would not be seen again until decades later with the hunt of the Yorkshire Ripper, Fourth River murder victim. The fourth tragic victim, Mary Fleming, was to provide police with much needed break. The 22-year-old naked body was found in the Berrymaid Road, just off the Cheswick High Road, and within short distance of two previous victims. Mary, like the others, was prostitute, short in height, and discovered with her front teeth missing. She also had swallowed sperm prior to her violent death. The forensic found mince paint speck on her body. And the big question of the police was where the killer had hiding the bodies for whatever reason before dumping them. Now the detectives were feared that murders from the several years before could be linked to those known to be carried out by the Hammersmith serial killer, particularly those Elizabeth Fagg, 1959, and Gwyneth, 1963. In total, around 5 unsolved murders of the young girls going back to late 1950s were reinvestigated for the possible cases. Celebrity victim number 5. The fifth victim, brutally murdered by now much feared Jack the Stripper, was discovered on the 25th of November in a car park in Horton Street, some distance away, close to the busy Kingston High Street. This was the first time that the victim had been found outside of the killer's murder territory. In West London, Frances Brown, whose real name was Margaret McGowan, was in a different league to the other murdered prostitutes. She was known as an upmarket car girl who mixed with the rich and famous a year before. Margaret murder her face had become familiar to newspaper readers when she appeared as a court witness during the era known notorious sex scandal involving John Profumo, the Secretary of State for War. The disgrace John had shared the favor of known prostitute Christine Keeler and Mary Rice Davis. With a Soviet attach in the scandal threatened to bring down the then conservative governor. Now, Margaret, like the other strangled woman, was also short in height and found to have a tooth missing. Important for the investigator, her body revealed from familiar paint specks. Vital facts. Despite the lack of hard evidence pointing to the identity of the killer responsible of the 5 known murders, the only fact the police could be sure of what was that strangler victim had been stored in the place where the high powerful paint sprayer had left a residue of paint specks on their bodies. Now, as the assuming motivation of the killer, it was suggest that the act of storing the bodies before dumping them may have been out of desire of the killer, part of over his prey, or more disturbing, carrying out his plan. Now, ident- identity kit pictures of the serial killer was issued after friends of the last murder victims. Margaret recalled seeing her with a client in the pub, a second but view sighting by the courting couple at nighttime. One of the victims was a male client. Described the male as short and wearing a trilby. I can't say that. Trilby something. However, one incidental lead or tip off after another continue to flood overburdened inquiries room as the team tried to keep up with the growing amount of information they needed to be cross-referenced. Now, modified bodies. The last and the sixth victim took place almost a year after the first body of Hannah on a cold, foggy morning, 16th of February, 1965. Now, electrical fitter on his way to work at Horn Industrial Estates in action was surprised to be bright and red toenail peeking out of the bracken of a glass in the alleyway. Now, Bridget O'Hare from Dublin was also known as Birdie, only and had left Ireland to earn a living with a sex worker in London. Now, she had been missing from the 11th of January and may have been held in storage for a month before her body was moved to its last resting place at Horn Industrial Estate. This time was found that the body was partly mummified, suggests that it had been kept somewhere hot. This detail was never now another clue police officer had part of their search and desperately sought storage location for the bodies. It was evident to investigators that whoever the killer was, they had knowledge of a bolt hole or secluded place in West London to take his dead victims to and store until the moment to decide to dump them. Fifth day. Now, Scotland Yard decide to recall from vacation Chief Superintendent John DeRose, one of the force must respect and experience investigation to try to help solve the murder case as the controversy as Jack the Ripper. Now, horrific attacks 100 years before. Now, Superintendent DeRose was named 5 Day Johnny due to the reputation to get the bottom of bluffing case within a short space of time. DeRose requests a huge addition in the investigation team by employing an extra 600 officer ranging from 300 strong special patrol group, 200 plainclothes detectives, and 100 extra uniform officer. Now, DeRose prior was concrete on the one concrete clue left the victim's body. The paint flax. This vile evidence could lead DeRose to the location where the bodies were stored. An area near a paint spraying plant. Officer scrutinized in the area that was 24 square miles in West London, looking for such a place. No details was seen as too small, as DeRose insists that this team interviewed every man working at that plant and established whether any of or had access to spray guns, particularly the ones who worked at the night. Now, daily profile and breakthrough. Now, during the investigation, DeRose surmised that the unknown serial killer was sadness who took pleasure in killing a victim during the act of fatello, an intimate sex act, where the women were physically vulnerable, gave the killer an opportunity to grab the victim's head, both suffocating and strangling them in the process, generally in a huge police manhunt involving interviewing hundreds of men known to frequent prostitutes, or those who caught curling, presenting as a long list of suspects, and that was generally whittled down to few. Now, DeRose was known, determined to move in and identify the killer. The big break came was to come from Bertie O'Hara's body had been found in Heron Industrial Estates. A pattern of a paint matching that on the fourth victim and was located on the site of nearby transformer. The building was opposite as a paint spraying shop and was discovered to be the place where the bodies had been kept. Murder ceased, while 7,000 men who worked in Heron Estate were questioned and random killings appear to have stopped, suggesting that the murder opportunity to get out and attack were now limited by encroaching visible police presence. Now, the process of elimination of the suspect was generally narrowed down to Superintendent D. Rose to 3 and then to 1. The primary suspect was a security guard on the estate was duty appeared to perfectly fit with the dates and murders. He was a quiet family man who was seen to have access to the buildings where the bodies were known to have been stored. But before the suspect could be questioned, he unexpectedly took his own life and was never formally charged. So the murders had by now stopped, despite there being no concrete evidence to suggest and security guard was the notorious Jack the Stripper. The accused investigation was expectantly wind down and left on the cold case files. Whoever the serial killer and obsession to kill the short prostitutes, as it was assumed, he either died or had become capability to be able to carry on his horrific deeds. Now, with no charges suspects facing justice, the high publicized gruesome murders 6 women in just over a year, attracting global headlines, soon entered the annual of police history as one of the most controversial unsolved cases. Serial killer, 6 young women, brutal murder 50 years ago, are still waiting for the unexpected recognition of their psychotic killer, no more than the grown-up children of the murder victims who despitefully need answers and closures. Now here's some more. Hey, Mustang, how you doing? Anybody else? Did I miss anybody else? And here's another one here. Let me get to it. Let me see. Is this one? So, Jack the Stripper here. These are the nicknames the unidentified serial killer response for the series of the gruesome murders of women in London during 1960, known as Hammersmith nude murders. So overall, the murders Jack the Stripper case referred to series of murders occurred between 64 and 65 in Hammersmith area, London. The victims, primarily sex workers, were found unclothed, often near the River Thames, leading to the chilling, inspired, and famous Jack the Ripper. The killer is to believe have been murdered 6 women, although King estimates suggest the number could be higher than 8. So, the first victim was Hannah, found February 2nd, 1964, near Hammersmith Bridge. Her body showed signs of strangulation, mutilation. Irene, number 2, discovered April 8th, 1964. Her murder was linked to Tilford, as both were found in similar conditions. Now, Helen, age 22, found on April 24th, 1964. Her body was discovered in the alley, also showing signs of violence. Now, Mary, found July 14th, 1964. Her body was discovered on Residential Street, and she had been strangled and stripped of her clothing. Now, Frances Brown, discovered November 1964. Her murder further solidified in the connection between the victims. Now, and then Bridget O'Hara, the last known victim, found January 1965, continued the pattern of the violence against vulnerable women. Now, the investigation impact. Despite the exclusive investigation, the media coverage and identifying of Jack the stripper remains unknown. The police faced challenge due to the lack of forensic technology at that time. Many leads went cold. The case drew significant public attention, leading to fear among sex workers and calls for better protection. Now, the murders highlight the, the vulnerable of sex workers in society and raise the question about their safety. The chilling nature of the crimes and killer invasion of capture have made Jack the Stripper a subject of intrigue in true crime discussions and historical analysts. Now, in the conclusion, the story of Jack the Stripper is hunting reminder of unsolved cases that continue to capture the public investigation. The culmination of the killer anomaly and the tragic fate of the victims ensures that this dark chapter in London history remains the topic of interest of both historic and true crime enthusiasts alike. Despite the passage of time, the case continues to invoke discussions about crime, justice, and social treatment and vulnerability. I do have the photo of Jack, who they're talking about. Let me get to that one here. Hold on. Let me see. Is it this one? That one. Where are you? Is it that one? I think so. I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. Where is it? All right. All right. So let me try to get. I know what I'm looking for now. It has a picture of this guy. The story of Jack. Yeah, here we go. All right. So this is the photo of this guy here. So the story of Jack the Stripper is chilling tales of unsolved murders in West London, where the killer targeted women, leaving their bodies found nude in the River Thames. The first known victim was Hannah, and then found in 1964, followed by Irene, Helen, and Mary and Frances, with final victim discovered in 1965. Despite the inclusive investigation of the massive manhunt, identity of Jack the Stripper remains unknown. The case continues to intrigue the true crime in the family history here. And historically, due to unresolved nature of eerie similar to Jack the Ripper murders. Now, Hammersmith nude murders are a significant part of British uh, criminal history and mystery surrounding Jack the Stripper, and continues to capture imagination. I'm trying to see who this is. Uh, No, that's not what that is. All right. Let's see here. This is so Metropolitan the police identified a suspect compile from description by eyewitness follow the murder of Francis Brown. 1940, the suspect has never been apprehended, identified. So this is a comparison to what he looks like here. That's what he's supposed to look like. And before that, this kind of looks like him right there. That looks like him. Exactly. So that looks exactly like him, ladies and gentlemen. It has same features. Ears the same how they described it. Ears the look at the ears. Ears is right there. Here's another one. That's him again. Um, his ears are pretty much the same as the drawing down here because his ears are out farther, like that one guy. So it matches that gentleman. It matches this gentleman right here. That's him. That matches him as the description of the killer. And he's one who killed himself, knowing that he was going to get caught. So very interesting and stuff. But there you go. There's the history of Jack the Stripper and stuff. I hope you all enjoyed it and catch you later. And I'll talk to you later. Might do something, find out another thing out here. So I'll talk to you guys all later. Have a good evening. Bye now.